as well. Welcome, folks. Rob Brown here with our fourth meeting of the lockdown. We try and have one every week and just gather together the people that are happy to play a little bit. Here's Vipul Sheth coming into the room. We've got Kevin and Matt and Kathryn and Phil. So yeah, we just play with whoever shows up. We've just got started. Vipul, welcome to the call. And I want to talk about leadership today. I want to talk about examples you've seen of the way the accounting profession is being led. It could be badly, could be really well. It could be leadership stuff you're doing yourself. It could be the way the government's leading us. It could be the way the media is leading us. But in times of uncertainty, we are looking for strong voices and strong leadership. Are we getting it? Where's it coming from? Is there a vacuum? What's filling the vacuum? Is there false leadership out there? Is there poor leadership? Is there a lack of leadership? Is there spin and fake news and all kinds of things? So I'm just kind of teeing that up for you there, and I'm just going to put it out. And if you want to say something, great. Kevin, you look like you're itching to come in on this. Have you got some views?
Well, I've been out in the sun all morning. It's lovely out there, isn't it? It's gorgeous, gorgeous day. We're so lucky.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, well, the media. I think the best thing to do is ignore the media. They've got their own agenda, obviously, to pour out the doom and gloom as much as they possibly can. Always has been, always will be. That's how they make their living, I guess. But yeah, certainly. I mean, there's different parts of the accounting sector. There are some people out there really making it happen and producing some good leadership towards their clients. And there's a lot of people out there who are just running around a little bit like headless chickens, I'm afraid.
Yeah. I had a virtual panel yesterday with some accounting network leaders. Hi, Philippa, welcome. We're just talking about leadership in the accounting profession. And so I had the heads of PKF, of USP, Prime Global, Charterhouse, these people that run these accounting networks. And I was asking them this question about leadership, and they were saying, well, some firms are getting it right, but there's more firms getting it wrong than are getting it right. And it's a shame because this is a time when strong leadership is needed. Phil, what do you think about the leadership situation in the profession?
It's an interesting one, right? So I think every time we've done this call, I've said the same thing. And I've said, you can come out of this looking like Mike Ashley, or you can come out of this looking good.
Yeah.
And, and I think that's the core thing, right? So, but I think there's some fantastic examples of leadership. Let me give you an example that yesterday. So Kirsty McGregor, head of the CFM network, has been doing great things in driving messages out there and lobbying the government. She was lobbying the government about getting fintech lenders onto the CBILS platform because, we need lenders that can be quick, not tied to traditional banks. And yesterday, from the feedback of her members that were struggling with the furlough scheme, and specifically those under 100 applicants, where you have to do it individually. So if you've got over 100, you can do it via CSV. If you've got under 100, you have to do it individually, line by line. This is causing the system to crash. It's causing problems. It's taking hours. Simple solution, right? Let's just make it so anyone more than 10 employees or over 10 employees can do it via CSV. So she put together a letter, which is going out to the government today. She went round to certain people in the industry. Capitalize was one of them, the company I work for, Accounting Web, Accountex, and some others. And within a day, she's heard this feedback from her members. She's created a letter to lobby out to the press and lobby out to the government to hopefully then get that changed. That is exactly what we need in this climate, right? Is people that can lead from the front, that can instigate change, and to get kind of everyone else involved in that. And that's the best of what we're seeing at the moment. And I'm seeing quite a bit of that at the moment.
I tell you what I am seeing as well on the back of that, Phil, is that decisions, once they are put forward, they are made a lot quicker. I'm hearing firms that are getting change through in a couple of days that would normally take them 3 to 6 months. I don't know whether that's the urgency, the importance of it, the need for quick decisions. Vipul, are you seeing
just to pick up on that? You're so right. Like we're seeing firms where we've been speaking to them for months, make decisions in days. and sometimes in hours. So yeah, no, I'd be interested to see what other people hear, but from our perspective, totally seeing.
Yeah. Vipul, are you seeing some quick decisions, some good leadership?
I am, and in a way, I'd kind of expect the type of firms that normally engage with us have that forward-looking mindset. They adopt technology quicker and they adapt processes quicker. So we've certainly seen that, and not yesterday, day before, had a really positive 2 hours because of some some of the firms who had perhaps furloughed some of their junior staff or some admin staff are actually bringing them off that because their professional staff are so busy. But equally, some of them brought forward some CapEx to enable more of their staff to be able to work remotely. So I think, certainly seeing very positive vibes coming from a lot of clients. But again, it's the ones that are being proactive in talking to their clients that we're seeing that from. And I think may have been this forum that I shared it before, where one of our clients, one of their local competitors has basically shut up shop. And I think there's a very big divide between the guys and girls that are doing it really, really well. And they should be applauded. And they will be the ones that benefit when we do come out of this.
Yeah,
inevitably we will.
We will, and they'll be the ones that people remember. Kathryn Barnes, you're still open for business?
I am, yes. I mean, we've been quite proactive in our approach as well, informing clients from day one. And I know certainly in our area, in the northeast, there's not been that many accountants that have been doing that. And we've noticed a change, certainly this week, is that we've gone from clients panicking to clients accepting the situation, and now the change is for them to drive it forward. So we've had a few that are thinking differently how to cope now with the business that they've got and how to cope in the future when things can return to a little bit more of a normality. So there's a massive change from the client's point of view, and from our point of view, it just keeps on what's going on.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's different.
Mark Garman, you swim channels and do all kinds of crazy things. Are you seeing a change in mindset? Are people stepping up and stepping into leadership?
Well, I put that post on your response earlier on, Rob, about the phases. I think the phases have been kind of panic, regroup, plan, and execute. And I think different organisations are at different stages of those, those stepping stones. And like I say, I spoke at a webinar yesterday to that effect. I'll come back to the point Phil made about the lady with the I don't know specifically whether that's an example of leadership. It sounds to me if there's up to over 100, you can use a CSV file. If there's rules that you can use a CSV file, then why don't you use a CSV file for the whole bloody lot? Would be my idea. But anyway, the reality. So I'm not sure whether that's leadership or whether that's somebody very, very smart, very, very clever, who's engaged with people. So it does include leadership, but it's like, you know what? This is a really, really dumb thing. I think we ought to change it like this. Get behind me and do it. Yes, that is an example of good, very, really good leadership, and actually getting stuff done really, really quickly.
Yeah.
And that's probably maybe a good thing about that is it moves away from this populist kind of, opinion of leadership where it's like, oh, I'm going to say this, I'm going to say the other. The examples are actually what you want to do is you want to take people with you at whatever stage and whatever journey they are. That's what leadership to me truly is more about. And I'm involved in a lot of sport, but yeah, it's recognizing where people are and how you can get them to their next step as well, I think.
Yeah. Philippa, you're nodding. You speak to leaders a lot, don't you? Well, let me just unmute you, Philippa. There you go.
So, yeah, I mean, I think leadership comes in many guises, doesn't it? And you don't need to be at the top of the tree, of a massive tree, to show leadership. I do know some quite small businesses and accountants, and they have just shown leadership by sharing knowledge, sharing their experience so far, putting out information to other people, to other accountants if they learn something. But equally, they've had trouble with some of their clients, and they've just basically said to them, actually, you know, you're being unreasonable. I think that we're not the right accountants for you. So they've also been trying as much as possible to take control of the relationship and not to be beaten up. So for me, that's great leadership on many levels. But you were also talking about quick decisions. I've seen that a lot being discussed in lots of different industries, certainly manufacturing, and also collaboration. So suddenly people are much more open to really collaborating and saying, okay, I do this. If we do a bundle, then maybe we can do this together, and just finding ways of accessing new business, certainly online, and using people's strengths. So that's what I've noticed.
Yeah. Let's just pivot for a moment to the word opportunity. I've been doing some research and just putting a video together for LinkedIn, which you'll see, all of you, shortly. And it's around how we are geared up for a really good upchange, for want of a better phrase, after the upcoming recession. We know GDP is going down. We know we're going into a recession globally. We know the government is pumping money into the economy and trying to keep things going. But there's a lot of good things in place. For instance, the technology has shown to be robust. It's sustained remote working. People have adapted really well to the new normal. What else is good? People in generations are ready for a shift. So the baby boomers are moving on. There's so many people going to retire in the next 12 months with more wealth than they ever have, and they're going to be spending that money. And the Generation X's, the millennials, the Zs are coming through. So there's going to be this handover of leadership. And these people are primed and ready to take over, these younger people than me. So all things are pointing to a real upturn. Once we get through this initial, it's in a lull, we've got to build it back up. Are you feeling optimistic? Are you feeling opportunistic? Are you feeling hopeful for what might be in quarter 3 and quarter 4? Or do you think it's going to take us longer than that to regroup? Just jump in.
Well, I think time, you know, even a week is a long time at the moment, and change can happen quite quickly in that time. So what's going to happen in the next few months and weeks, I don't know. But I think it's down to all of us to stay optimistic. And that is about continuing those conversations, even if the money isn't necessarily coming in, because I think you can actually build a lot of relationships as you go through. But hopefully, you know, in the next few weeks, and I'm hearing a lot about the change curve and how we're coming out into a more positive perspective now. I'm hoping that gradually that timeline will sort of speed up and we'll get back to something which is more helpful for everybody. Yeah.
Matt, you put a hand up.
Yeah, I totally agree with what you just said there, Philippa. I just got the very first point of that. I wouldn't actually want to be somebody retiring in the next 12 to 18 months, because my pots would have been absolutely massacred. But anyway, but to answer the point, I mean, there's a word that a lot of economists use, which is velocity, and I think they keep talking about very good firm foundations. You're quite right about what there is, firm foundations to the economy, and but I think a lot of it still comes down to the speed and the velocity of how and when we get back going. The longer things go on, you know, we are in a little bit of a kind of, you know, stuck position. Yeah. And I think the longer it stays stuck, the more the challenges we've got. And it's great that people are making decisions faster, because they're going to have to. Yeah. Because otherwise we're going to be stuck for a lot longer, in my humble opinion.
Yeah, come to you in a minute, Kevin. Listen to these companies that were born out of the last recession in 2008. Uber, Instagram, Airbnb, Dropbox, Slack, WhatsApp. Now, they're tech, but they were born out of the last recession. And so if you want to, you can start something big now. And there's this entrepreneurial generation coming up behind. There's a lot of things seem to be aligned. So But you're only going to take advantage of this opportunity if you have the skills, the mindset, the strategies, the ideas to capitalize on it. Otherwise, you're just going to get left behind. And you can see a lot of accountants getting left behind.
And the bollocks to do it. Sorry, forgive my language.
Yeah.
Well,
See my LinkedIn profile.
Yeah.
It's not just technology that came out of that last recession rate. So the whole lending market, as it is today, was because of that last recession. So the banking system fundamentally proved not fit for purpose. There was massive deregulation from the government, and that enabled the lending space that we have now. We saw an exponential, in a credit crunch, we saw an exponential increase of the amount of lenders that are in the marketplace, offering better, more innovative and more fit for purpose products. And a lot of banks got left behind by that. So actually, it's not just tech that came out of the last recession. Actually, a lot of the banks and financial organizations that are there supporting businesses through where we are today are here because the traditional banks were so not fit. I was trying not to swear there, Matt. I was trying not to add another blooper into it, but was so not fit for purpose previously. So actually, the innovation is huge, and even further reaching than technology.
Welcome, Aynsley. We're just talking about the opportunities that are going to happen after the inevitable recession with what's going on, and so you can come in on that in a moment. Kevin, you were going to add something.
Yeah, I was just going to say that the opportunities that I'm certainly seeing is people realizing that actually this tech isn't that complicated. And to illustrate that little story, I've been acting for a client for 25 years, and to do anything technical with them, you get as far as a phone call and that's it. You try and help them with their computers, and they have no ability to do this. This week, they were forced to jump on a Zoom call, forced to share screens, forced to do stuff, and you could see them going, oh my God, this is brilliant. Yeah, this is such an opportunity for us. Why haven't we seen this before? And I think that is something that will come out of this, is that a lot of people will suddenly be forced to use technology and realize that actually it's really good. And then that will then drive technology to be even better. So I think there'll be a change of mindset towards the whole thing.
Well, we know the technology's stacked up and it's putting us in a good place to take advantage. We've also seen the bar lowered for technology. And by that, I mean that look at us all. We're in T-shirts now. We don't care about the backdrop. Aynsley's in his garden with 10 acres there and got the sun going on. And we don't care so much about the lighting and the sweatshirts and the kids running around. But back a few weeks ago, we wouldn't speak to a client without a suit and tie on, and everything had to be just perfect. So, Aynsley, are you feeling optimistic about the future?
Absolutely. Sorry, I haven't come branded specifically for this, and I do have other clothes. I've just been on a webinar. So.
Yeah.
No. I think it's amazing. I think, like, we've known the business advisory for God knows how long has been the way forward from an accounting firm perspective. Added value, not even just business advisory, added value services and solutions. And accountants have been confused about what that means and how to offer it to all their clients. Now, suddenly, they've got all their clients asking for what is effectively business advisory support. It's, where am I now? What am I going to do? How can I protect my cash? How can I make more money? All the things that we consider business advisory are being demanded by the clients. And I think, finally, accountants are realizing that to do this on scale, for the top 10, 20%, it always has to be bespoke and it's never going to change, and that's great and that's fantastic. But to actually make sure that every single small business owner gets some element of support from you, and to do that cost effectively, you've just got to leverage technology. And whether that's Zoom, whether that's the bookkeeping software, whether that's add-on tools or whatever else, finally, I think they're getting that actually to scale this massively and to reduce the cost so that it's effective and affordable for small businesses, I actually need to use technology. And sometimes good enough is good enough. I think that's been the challenge as well. I think as accountants, we're always trying to be perfect, balance everything to the penny, know every entry, every tax rule. And now suddenly we're realizing that actually sometimes good enough is good enough. Let's get it out there. Let's get it done. Yeah, so I think it's good.
Vipul, you've got a foot in the UK with your outsourcing business, but also a foot in India and the other parts of the world. Are we seeing anything different there, or is it all the same?
I mean, obviously, because of lockdown, we've had to make some changes to our systems to enable us to continue operating. But picking up on what Aynsley and the others have been saying, I think you know, the opportunity now is there. And I think the biggest thing that will come of this is, if cloud wasn't the default position, it will be now. And I think that is the biggest change that will come out of this. So the clients that every firm that we talk to, they've been best able to help have been those that have moved to the cloud. The ones they've not been able to help are those with the desktop software sitting in an office that they can't access today. And I think that is really going to drive this. And you know, and we've certainly seen some changes in the types of service that are now being demanded compared to even 6 weeks ago. So more migration, more cash flow, that sort of advice. And for example, we do bookkeeping. A client has gone from monthly to weekly to now daily because they want to be able to manage their cash better. So I think, you know, it's an evolution, but the fact that Zoom is now more, people are comfortable doing it, there will be firms that will say, you know what, I'm going to do 20 Zoom meetings every day and not 5 meetings where I require the clients to come in to have that conversation.
Yeah, you pivot nicely onto the next topic, but just before we leave, so we've discussed leadership so far and how the accounting profession is being led right now, examples of good leadership and otherwise. We talked about the overall vibe. Are we feeling hopeful and opportunistic about what will be after the inevitable recession and slowdown? So any final thoughts on those before I pivot on to the next topic, which is going to be, will there be a new normal? Are we going to reboot and just go back to where we were before, like you turn a computer on and off? Or is it going to be some kind of reset? Will there be a new normal, a new kind of accounting firm, a new lending system, a new way of doing business, a new vibe? So that's where I'm going. But any final thoughts on the opportunistic future? All good? Okay. So Martin Bissett and I, we run a couple of mastermind groups. He says there's not going to be a new normal. He says it's all a bit of a fallacy. We're all going to go back to how we were before. Nothing much has really changed. It's just highlighted a few things. But I beg to differ. I think an accountant is now going to think twice about traveling 2 hours to go and see a client face to face now that they've experienced what Zoom can offer, for example. So let me put it to you, smart people. Do you feel that things are never going to go back to the way they were? Have we left that behind, or are we going to regress back to the old days? What do you reckon?
I think some will, Rob. I sit between you and Martin, right? I think Martin's right in that some firms will default to normal and they will go back to it and they will do things the same way. But actually, I genuinely think the majority of firms that I've spoken to have said this has fundamentally changed the way we're looking at our business. From the tech that we've implemented to the conversations we're having to the approach we're taking.
Staff working at home.
Yeah, everything. It's like we you know, as Capitalise, we're looking at it and going, well, actually, can we adapt to do? And my role as head of education here at Capitalise, you know, do I need to go out as much as I have done over the past year? Or actually, am I as effective or as efficient, or if not more so, sat at home? Yeah, I might have to, you know, after the apocalypse, I might have to put a shirt back on. But I think that might be my biggest change, that I get out of my hoodie for a while. But yeah, I think, do you know what? I think majoritatively there will be a new normal, and it'll be better. But there will be firms that will still go back to how they were, and I think that's sad.
Aynsley, you've been on the bleeding edge of what's new and the new normal for a while. What do you reckon?
Well, it's funny because I've had to do some Zoom training sessions for some of our members, crazy as it is. And I looked back at when I signed up for Zoom, which was 2014. So that's when Taya Ballytonin started using Zoom for webinars and meetings. And I just think it's unfortunate it's taken this long for other accounting firms to actually open the box. Now, I know why, and we all know why. We don't need to get into that one here because we'll go on a complete tangent. But I agree with Phil. I think the challenge, so I think some firms just can't wait to default to where they were and probably are going to roll back straight away. And there will be firms that actually go, shoot, this is really a cool way to do things. I think the big challenge is going to be combining the two. So how do we have some working from home whilst some are in the office? How do we integrate Zoom within our working environment? And it's not just those. I mean, there's a whole heap of tech we're talking about here. I just think they might think, oh my God, I've got too many tax returns and too many accounts to do, and let's focus on that, rather than actually, there's been an amazing opportunity given to us. We've been forced to effectively go cloud, go mobile, go working from home, go everything that we've all been shouting about for so long. And you know, even we were discussing on a webinar today, even payment methodologies, like now's, if you haven't got subscriptions and you haven't got direct debits and you haven't got, you're not taking commissions from introducers, now's the ideal time to start introducing these things, because you've got an excuse, you've got a reason to do it. And I just hope people embrace it.
Mm. Matt, you've seen a few things in your time. Anything like this? Are we going to go back to the way we were?
I think there's two aspects of it. I think there's the internal and the external. The internal is how does an employer, you know, whether that's a business or a professional firm, how does an employer want to go about strategizing and working with its people and its teams internally, and how do they operate? You know, do you have days? You know, I think there's got to be I'd like to see more thought around that from the leader, going back to the leaders of those firms, working out what successful team working looks like for their people, and then from the external side of things, the customers. You know, I can see, there's many a time we jump in a car, we travel, and we go and meet someone, and it's a meeting, but it's absolutely could have been a meeting that could have been done over Zoom. So I disagree with your colleague's point about there won't be a new normal. I think there will be a new normal, and I think different firms and different people and different mindsets will shift a lot more to the agile way of working. I think there'll be a more shift towards the agile way of working than the shift to go back to how things were.
Yeah, Philippa, you've been making some notes there.
Yeah, I have. I agree with what Matt was saying, actually, but just to add onto that, I think there will be we'll see three types coming out. We'll see those who drop back into their old known behaviour. I think we'll see those who have actually been desperate for a catalyst so that they could just make this move. And I've heard companies talking about that recently, to say it's just brilliant, you know, it's given me that push that I needed. And then I think there will be those middle ground, which will probably be the largest, which is, you know, they've learned to do Zoom, they've learned to be sort of digitally enabled, and they'll see that that has benefit not only into their working day and the time they have, but also with the cost savings associated with that. And I know that some of the large businesses I talk to, they're already thinking about how they can cut costs, which for them is it's quite a negative way of looking at it. But I think they've learned from the experience. But what I would say is, whatever group you fall into, I think it would be really silly if the people within the business didn't review what had happened and think about, you know, how their people behaved, what was their culture like, and did that really help? How did people deal with digital? How's that going to have to change things? And then looking at also, Matt, externally about, you know, what was the brand doing? How did it perform? You know, did it really sort of demonstrate values and, you know, and give that extra value? So I would like to see that there are lots of questions being asked, and that people learn a little bit, and some much more than others.
Yeah. Kevin, you've been in this game a while. How good are accountants at learning what's happened before and pivoting and adapting to change? Because my experience of them is not great.
As they have until now, they're not very good at it at all. So this is make or break as far as I'm concerned. But I mean, I've been living this sort of life of working from home in a t-shirt for 30 years. In the last 10 years, as technology has come through, my number of meetings traveling around is less and less and less. So I've not noticed a thing with this whole process, other than the conversation changing, obviously, with our clients. We're carrying on working as we are. But when you talk to people and say, well, this is how you do it, before they just look at you as if to say you're on another planet. How can you possibly not go to an office every day? How can you possibly, take time off during the day? How can you possibly have group meetings with your clients, bring all of your clients together into one meeting and get them all to share ideas with each other? They're like, you can't have this client talking to that client. You go, yeah, you can. Of course you can. That's what Zoom does, And they're beginning to see this, and there's been lots of resistance, and I've been touring around the country doing some speaking, working with some software companies, and it's a constant battle with the accounting world that they just resist it. They just resist it. Well, they either carry on resisting it, and eventually they will just effectively die. Their businesses will die, or they make some changes, and that's the big thing I think will change, is that they will either change or they won't, but either way, the ones that change will survive and the ones that won't don't. So it'll be a nice clean break for everybody.
And let's consider that for a moment. If we look at the natural bell curve, that distribution curve, these three firms that Philippa was alluding to, we're going to lose some, aren't we? We're going to lose some firms that have old-fashioned leadership. They're not as progressive as Kathryn say. They're not as young and forward-thinking. They're not going to be able to cope with the new normal. They're going to want things to go back quickly, and they're going to get left behind. There's going to be some loss.
I predict one thing that's going to happen, and that is that some of this change may not happen immediately, but I've talked about it in some of my videos. I've talked about the bounce, and for the accountants, what I think we'll see is when we get to January 2021, next January, it will self-implode on itself, because everybody's so busy now that there'll be a bit of a delay. And then when it hits in Christmas and January, the staff will react and they'll go, I can't do this anymore, I'm off. And they'll go, oh, I can get Zoom, I can get a bit of software, I'll pick up a few clients and I'll just go myself. And that will then, self-implode on everything else. And those people that run for it and make their own will be able to, that'll be the change, I think. So I think
Kevin, that's actually happening already, right? So I know a couple of firms, one specific, that due to that firm's inability to adapt to change, that they've actually, like a whole swathe of their team have left.
Yeah.
And all the good people, all the cloud people, all the savvy people that are very well known and have worked really hard to build up that reputation, have actually gone on to other things. So that's already happening. And I think actually down the line, I think you're spot on. I think it's going to happen more. And Rob, to your point, I think you might even see some of the bigger firms start to struggle now, because they're the ones that are going to lose that march to the smaller firms that can be more agile, that can, anyone, if you're qualified, you can go out and set up your own practice now. That's the honest answer.
All of which is good for the profession, because you'll actually have a demand for more accountants looking after all the clients, but you'll be looking after them better. So you won't need 300 clients to look after. You just need 30 good quality clients. And you can do that on your own with a network of people around you. And
Vipul, you'll see this in your game. When you ask accounting firms, what's your biggest challenge to growth? It is often getting enough of the right people to deliver on that. And if firms are losing people because they are leading them poorly, they are not agile enough through this whole COVID-19, then we're going to see a lot of good people leaching out the profession and a lot of good firms losing good people. And they're probably going to need more outsourcing stuff like you're offering.
I would expect so. I would certainly expect so. But that's both from established and new practices. Because when our staff or our clients we're talking to, they're all looking now, are they at the right level of headcount? And that only means one thing. That they're reviewing who they've got, do they add value, and if they don't, is there another way of actually resourcing that? And that could be using the likes of us, or it could be some other means, but it's certainly going to be a change. But I think the biggest thing that's actually going to drive the change is the length of time that we're likely to be in this social distancing. So even if people are allowed to go back to the office, perhaps half the people will still be working from home, or people come in Monday, Tuesday, and then another group come in Wednesday, Thursday, those sorts of things. So I think that is what will drive change within established firms where otherwise they would probably have completely gone back to the normal.
Yeah.
If the government announced, right, next Friday, everyone go back to normal, probably you'd find a big chunk of them will revert back to type. But I think this long period that we're likely to be in this holding pattern means that people will have to think seriously about the way that they're operating their businesses.
Well, the average commute in the UK is 48 minutes. Who wants that? If you've got a taste of working from home and avoiding 2 hours of travel a day, and you can maintain the security and the client connection and everything else that you need, why would you go back? And you would resist leadership that told you to go back into an office and face all of that again. If you've got the environment to work from home. Aynsley, you're looking thoughtful there. We're talking about the new normal.
I completely agree. I mean, I think, I suppose my challenge from an accounting firm is the leadership of most of them. And I know you've been talking about leadership, so I don't want to rehash a conversation you've had, but I do tend to find that leadership is lacking in most accounting firms. And
that's what we've concluded. Yeah. Sadly.
And their corporate model isn't a true corporate model, in that they have, the leadership team has huge client relationships and relations and huge workloads that they can't effectively manage the bloody firm in any instance. So I think, every firm I've been exposed to from a bigger size down seems to, the whole culture is maintaining the status quo. And I think leaders have lost touch oftentimes with what's actually happening on the ground, and they are fed stories all the way up along the line which support the maintenance of the status quo, and firms look at how they can't do something rather than how could we do this. So I suppose I'm slightly concerned that the leadership will not fully grasp potentially what's available to them, and may not be strong enough in asking questions as to how can we make this, what's happened, how can we make this amazing, and how can we find a better solution going forward.
Yeah.
I think my issue is the I suppose the focus on inputs and the targets on inputs that have always been the case, and why can't, and I think now more than ever that we should be focusing on the outcomes and the outputs. And I just don't know if the leadership will get that switch at the moment. The managing teams and switching from an input to an output target, particularly from a working from home environment, I think is critical. And I've seen firms take longer to do a set of accounts than we used to at KPMG to audit. I just think, oh my God. So even with automation, they're padding out the file or the budget with God knows how many hours to just maybe justify the fee because it's time-based billing. I don't know.
Yeah, let's move to closing remarks. We do get a lot of accountants, partners and leaders in accounting firms watching these videos and these panels that we do. So can I ask you to consider, as we bring it to a close, some words of encouragement or hope? What would you say to the accounting profession? What advice would you give them if you were eyeballing them right now, coaching them, consulting them, training them, if you've been brought in by their leadership to help them pivot through what's going on? What would you say to them at this time? And I'll ask you again next week if you're on next week's call, and it might be something different. But for now, this moment, Vipul, I'm going to come to you first because I know you've got to go to another call. So what advice would you give to the accountants listening?
I think we all have an amazing skill, and I think it is wrong for our profession not to make use of those skills. And I think that's I've always said that as a professional, what we're supposed to do is change our lives. And now we genuinely have that opportunity. Many of us in the profession are stepping up to it, but a bigger proportion aren't. And I think if that would be the one thing that I would say is use that skill and use it in the right way to support them.
Yeah. Kathryn?
Yeah, I would say that take this as an opportunity to review what you have been doing, what you're doing now, and what you can do in the future, because it is a massive learning curve for a lot of traditional based accountants, and take it as an opportunity. There are opportunities out there, grasp it with both hands, definitely.
Yeah. It's when adversity and crisis comes along that we are forced to make a change. Otherwise, nothing changes, does it? Matt, what's your words of encouragement to the accountants listening?
I just pick up on a point that Aynsley made earlier on. You know, somebody said to me once, or spoke at an event I was at once, and a lot. You know, this is a while ago. We don't have jobs to fill. We don't have positions to fill. We've got outcomes we need to achieve, right? And it doesn't really matter where that is. And you're obviously extremely good at emceeing these forums, Rob, because we've kind of looped back to leadership quite nicely, because you know, you said about how are things going to change, how are this firm going to change, is that firm going to change, or we're going to lose staff. You know, if they're, you know, they're not, all of these firms, whether they're big buildings, big brands, big premises, or anything else like that, they're all run by people. You know, they're not boxes, they're run by people, and those people need to lead. That's the point. So yeah, the ones that are going to lose from that, they're going to probably lose because of a void of leadership.
Yeah. Phil, thoughts from you?
I think you've got to look at this as an opportunity. You've got to look at the opportunity to better your business, to streamline your business, and to be closer to your clients. Because actually, if you're not looking at one of those three things, right? So if you're not like trying to be better at what you do, if you're not trying to offer better services, if you're not trying to be better for your clients, then what are you doing, right? Like what is your long-term plan? Because, you know, I think I said this on a post you put out, Rob, like there are going to be a lot of SMEs and businesses looking for a new accountant on the back of this.
Yeah.
When they realize that their current firm are not fit for purpose for whatever reason. Now, you can be the kind of firm that's best placed with the services your clients need to take those clients and really deliver for them, or you could be the firm that's going to lose your clients to those firms. Now's the time to decide where you want to be on that. So I think it's a huge opportunity, but I think it's a huge opportunity to do good, and I think it's a huge opportunity to make a catastrophic mistake.
Interesting. Kevin, final thoughts from you, words of encouragement to the accountants listening?
Well, if anybody's even been following me on LinkedIn for the past few weeks, few months, leadership is what I've been banging on about a lot. And recognizing that whatever we're going through is difficult times in different circumstances for different people. We're going to be 1 minute dealing with a client who's soaring off into success, and it's going to be exciting watching them capitalize on this. And the next thing, you're going to be dealing with a client who's facing bankruptcy and, you know, all the dark black stuff that comes with all that. And you've got to be sitting in the middle of all this. But the message that I've been putting out to people is that the exciting news for the accounting industry, the really, really exciting news, is that every single accountant has the ability and capability and if you like, the brain power to become really good leaders. It's just that nobody's shown them. They spend all the time being a great accountant, and they just need to just actually put their head up and go, okay, somebody show me. And so with some coaching and some mentoring and some help, accountants can be really, really good leaders. They have the ability. They just got to decide whether they want to join in or not.
Yeah, that's a very good point. For my two pennyworth, accountants do need to lead more in the engagement. And by that, I mean the conversation. When a client says to an accountant, we can't afford this, we don't have the budget for this right now, we've decided not to go ahead with that, how rigorous are accountants at pushing back on that and say, well, tell me a bit more about your decision-making process there. Tell me about why you decided that. Because they might be making that decision out of panic, out of fear, out of the wrong information. So accountants truly need to lead and help clients make rigorous commercial business decisions that might be the wrong ones were it not for that trusted advisor. So that would be my two penny. Philippa, will come to you, and then Aynsley will finish with you and your closing thoughts. What are your words of encouragement to accountants viewing?
Well, I guess as somebody who looks at the vision and brand values of these organisations, I know that in the past there has been quite a bit of pushback, certainly with the more traditional accountants that we've alluded to earlier. I would say now is the catalyst, really. Now is the time to think about it seriously, because actually the people who pushed back with me in particular, it was because all of the senior accountants there, they operated as islands. if you like. They were just business people within four walls. And I suspect that with what's happened, they've all had to come together digitally as well as, you know, emotionally and all of that good stuff. And they need teams, they need leadership, as you've said, they need a vision, they need a glue that kind of brings that firm together in order to survive, actually. And I think the more remote we get, the more there needs to be a glue to keep everybody together. So I think it's a really great time to cut through what has been established norms and, you know, I'll just go like that in my little corner. I think actually they need to start looking out. And I'm doing a survey shortly among small businesses to say how have their accountants kind of lived up to the crisis. And that will, I'm sure, have a lot of kind of insight into the need for communication, relationships, having a culture, a great approach, all of that good stuff. So we will see. But I think it's a great time if they can put their energy into it.
Aynsley, final words. You've been banging the drum for change for many years now. Surely now you've got the platform to bring about some change.
I hope so. I think, you know, I've always been banging on that accountants can save the world. I think now is the time for them to rise. This is their exact fantastic time that they can show and demonstrate their inherent skills, ability, training, everything that they can do. They are the front line for SMEs. And so I think we don't even have to, I suppose, you know, you don't even have to look for it anymore. Clients are asking for the help that you should have been giving them all along, or maybe you were afraid to charge for all along, or afraid to ask them if they wanted it all along. So I think it's about right people, process and tech. And I think it's mobilize the team, as everybody's been saying. It's get everybody on board, make sure the systems and processes are there to be able to scale it across the entire firm and get everybody involved, not just the top team, and leverage the tech that's there to be able to do some of the heavy lifting.
Yeah. Accountants can change the world. That's a great note to end on. Any final thoughts that you're burning to say before I wrap things up? Well, thank you folks for joining in today. As always, we just open up the Zoom room once a week and play with whoever shows up. And it's been a terrific discussion today. We've covered a lot of important points. I'll put it up on YouTube over the next few hours and let's share it, because there's some amazing insights here that accountants need to be watching and listening to, and most importantly, taking action on. So thanks for taking part. We'll see you on the WhatsApp group and on LinkedIn, and go off, keep yourself safe, save the world, and do the great things that you do. Thanks for playing. Bye-bye.